Nick, thank you so much for sharing your lesson about authentic leadership. To be authentic, you have to know yourself. You have to appreciate your uniqueness as a person and know who you are. So, what types of experiences and opportunities would you recommend a person try to participate in to learn more about who they are so that they can understand their uniqueness?
Well, I think the first thing that, before they even get involved, I think students and anybody on campus or beyond needs to not avoid what makes them unique. So it is so tempting to always lean into, how do I fit in? It's like human nature to just want to be able to look at others and say, oh, I'm with them. But what really makes the strongest leaders and makes the strongest people are those that can lean into what makes them quirky or weird or any other description that others might put on it, but really just is them being, their most authentic, interesting thing. Here's an example for me personally. So I'm a professional wrestling fan, which growing up, I was like the only kid in school that really liked that. So I would always keep that part silent. And then, as I grew up, it was just something that I just never really pursued any kind of involvement in. And it has then, as I got older, been something that I said, you know what, this is something I want to do. And I started a pro wrestling podcast. So it's a way that, something that all that wasted time, went out the window because I wasn't embracing what I truly loved. And, who knows what I could be doing now if I started even earlier. And that kind of energy is what I would encourage people to always bring in, to say, don't waste your time, be yourself, get involved. Now that can come in a variety of different capacities. It could come from, approaching a professor of a class you've really been inspired by, that maybe it's not cool to say, oh, I really want to, link up with this professor and do more research. But do that. Take that risk if it's something that really interests you. Or join that club or organization that maybe just be a hobby, but could be a link to you meeting fellow students who share that hobby, meeting the faculty or staff advisor who also shares that hobby, who then can provide you connections moving forward. So it's really embracing what is you and finding those outlets on campus to express that.
So it sounds like being your authentic self connects you to communities.
100%.
Absolutely. So speaking of that, in the role that you currently have here at Ryder, how do you find students respond to you and your authentic leadership?
Well, to answer that, I want to talk about how I kind of got involved here at Ryder personally. So when I was a freshman as a student at Ryder in 2003, I would just roam around campus trying to be that student, almost that hid in plain sight, because I wasn't comfortable enough to be authentic, to be real. And one day I was in the lunch line, and actually the person who does the job that I do now said to me, hey, how come I don't know you? I'm not familiar with you on campus. And it was Cassie Iacovelli, who you know.
Yeah.
And she said, I really want you to get involved. That's atypical for someone to be around here and not be connected.
Right.
And that was the light switch for me. It was that tap on the shoulder that so many people have to give them permission to be themselves, to break out, to get connected, to use your word. Right. And how being connected really is the gateway to you being able to share yourself. As I've grown into my role, I've since started working at Ryder and worked with hundreds and hundreds, thousands probably of students. We all as people try to navigate the waters of what is the deepest connection I can make with people? How do I approach that? And for me, it was always being real with students. Mm-hmm. I've always found them to just, if anything, be frustrated when they felt like they weren't getting an authentic answer from somebody, or someone was beating around the bush, or if they've ever felt like they were being passed around. Mm-hmm. They want someone who's going to sit with them and give them their full heart and their full attention. And that has always served me well. So that's how I've always approached students. And I think it's always been appreciated. I mean, there are sometimes, in life, anybody, students or beyond, sometimes you don't want to hear the tough love, or you don't want to hear the truth in the moment. Right. But I think at the end of the day, even when I've had those moments, Laura, it's always come back to have the student say, you know what, I actually learned from that experience. And that's why it's important to keep it real.
Serving as a role model, an example, and helping them feel that they have a safe space to be themselves,
right,
as well.
Absolutely.
Nice.
That's so true. That is very true.
Absolutely. So my last question for you is, you mentioned that being authentic can be exhausting. It can be frustrating. What do you do to keep your energy up during those times?
Well, I say it can be exhausting, it can be frustrating, because I feel like people who are authentic are pulling from every element of themselves to give to someone in that moment. So, when you leave that conversation, you're naturally going to be more tired than you would be if you were just giving a superficial answer and then keeping it moving. So it is important to recharge. You can't just keep giving of yourself on an everyday basis and not need that recharge. For me, I think every individual has to find out what is that recharge moment. Right. Sometimes you can still be going out and being social with friends and family. Sure. That can be recharging. Or for others, it might be you need a day on the couch with the Hulu or the Netflix and just getting your daily house stuff done to be the recharge. So it's really, again, doing more of a personal inventory and finding out, how do I recharge? Because eventually, if you don't recharge, that vase or whatever, the pitcher of the bucket that you're filling up other people's glasses with is going to be so empty, and you need to keep refilling that for both yourself and for them if you're so committed to actually being there for them.
Great. Thank you for being your authentic self today, for sharing a bit about who you are and encouraging others to do the same.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me, Laura.
You're welcome.